Things were trending towards the Raptors being sellers and eventually tanking at the NBA trade deadline. But has this 5-game win streak changed things for Toronto? Well, if these reports about Brandon Ingram and Andrew Wiggins are true, then it certainly has. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content and videos like this and live streams on the channel. If you do enjoy what you see along the way, please hit that like button to support the channel and subscribe if you're new. We just hit 18,000 subs and now our goal is to hit 20K in 2025. You can help us get there and get all this great Raptors content in return, especially as we creep up towards the NBA trade deadline next week. And the trade deadline all of a sudden could look very different for the Raptors than it appeared it would have done. After their terrible start to the season and dealing with injuries, dealing with all these losses, it was trending towards the Raptors eventually tanking, and facilitating the tank would have been being a selling team at the deadline. You know, moving on from the bench pieces like Boucher maybe, Bruce Brown, hopefully, maybe even Kelly Olynyk. Some people are even questioning if Jakob Poeltl would eventually be on the move. Whatever it was, the Raptors seemingly were going to be trending towards a tank. You know, they were well outside of the play-in tournament picture looking in. You look at the caliber of the draft we have coming up. Like, you have, potentially 3 generational talents available in Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, but also, Cooper Flagg, who goes maybe beyond the statement of generational player there. This is the type of draft that is one that really motivates you to tank, especially when you have been doing so poorly. But perhaps a change in fortunes for the Raptors on the court has changed the mentality of the front office. The Raptors all of a sudden have won 7 of their last 8 games and have won 5 games in a row. This off the back of a 1 win in 17 streak. All of a sudden, this team looks serious on the court. And, you know, this comes at a time where the schedule is a bit lighter, absolutely, but, you know, the East isn't super competitive. If there is a desire from the Raptors to go on and make it to that play-in tournament, absolutely, they are capable of doing so. They still got ways to go. They still got some chasing to do, especially against their upcoming opponent, the Chicago Bulls. But they're certainly capable at this point of making the play-in tournament if they want to. But what we need to cover in today's video is if that's the right decision to push for the play-in tournament, and is it the right decision for push for trades for guys like Andrew Wiggins, who we'll cover near the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that. But more importantly, some reports are coming out about the Raptors supposedly having interest all of a sudden in Brandon Ingram. This report comes from Mark Stein, a very credible NBA reporter, who has suggested that all of a sudden the Raptors have emerged as a team to keep an eye on when it comes to Ingram. Now, usually when people lately have said the Raptors could be a team to keep an eye on, it's like, well, hey, the Raptors have picks, they have tradable contracts, they have cap space. Hey, keep an eye on this team because it's possible that this team could trade for this player. Yeah, it certainly is possible, but is this team actually going to be interested? Are the Raptors actually going to be interested in a player like Brandon Ingram? But then, going a little bit further with the report here, this is the first time in a while there's been any noise on the Brandon Ingram front, so perhaps could some of this be real? I was attempting to kind of initially mentally brush this one aside, thinking that, you know, this probably isn't even big enough to do a video on. But then I started to see some of the discourse online from Raptors fans suggesting hey, this could be a real piece for the Raptors to pick up. This could be a good move for the Raptors to take on. But my thoughts initially were, why on earth would you trade for Brandon Ingram here? Let's be honest. Let's look at this situation here, okay? I know we're winning games. I know, it's more fun to watch Raptors games right now. This season has got to be a tank. I told you guys last week in the video, this season has got to be a tank. This 5-game win streak does not change that. You look at the draft here. Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, just to name the 3 top-tier guys. You've got a lot of chance of getting a really, really good player there. And even if you fall outside the top 3, you land in the 6 to 8 range of the draft, there are still very good players available for the Raptors to get in those spots as well. The discourse coming from the front office is reportedly that the Raptors are looking to find a star to pair next to Scotty Barnes. Yeah, you're going to be able to go get that guy in the summer, and you're going to be able to possibly get that guy in the draft and pay him next to nothing for 4 years rather than going for a player like Brandon Ingram who wants a max contract. That's why he's not re-signed with the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram's on an expiring contract. He wants a max. If you trade for him, it's like Siakam's situation last year. The team trading for that player has the understanding that by trading for him, you are agreeing at that point to giving this player the max contract at the end of the season. debates on whether or not Brandon Ingram is worth that, for sure. But then some of the discourse shifted towards, okay, Brandon Ingram is a player. I'll preface this by saying I like Brandon Ingram as a player. I think he's a great player. Good shot creator, like the type of guy the Raptors need right now. Some guy who can create his own shot and get buckets, a really good scorer. And I think is like an okay fit overall next to Scotty Barnes. Not a seamless fit, but I think an okay fit overall. The discourse then shifted towards what would the Raptors actually have to give up to get Brandon Ingram? Because, hey, like, I understand the hesitancy for going after a player with, this big kind of star power to his name. But, like, the Pelicans, he's going to leave for nothing in the season. So what are you giving up? Because if you're getting a big-time discount, does all of a sudden this trade make a little bit of sense for the Raptors? Well, there's two scenarios where I see this one going down. There is the pick package and there is the player package. The pick package would look like this. The Raptors send over salary, expiring salary, and Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher. And then you add on the first-round pick, let's say from next year, the 2026 first-round pick from the Indiana Pacers. This is one that's centered around picks. The Pelicans give up on, the value of Brandon Ingram here. They're okay to get expiring salary and get a first-round pick in return for it. I'm hesitant to give up first-round picks because I keep saying the best thing the Raptors do is draft and develop talent. So stop taking away your chances to find that talent by giving away picks. But there's a scenario where you don't have to give up that first-round pick. This could be the players scenario where maybe RJ Barrett makes sense to go to the Pelicans alongside Chris Boucher for salary. And you only have to give up maybe 2 second-round picks this scenario. Let's say the 2025 second-round pick that we own via Portland and our own 2026 second-round pick. Well, all of a sudden, these are like pretty cut-price trades to get a player of Brandon Ingram's caliber. But you need to assess the fit. And if you really want to financially back Brandon Ingram with something like a max contract. So let's say in the first scenario, you bring in Brandon Ingram. Like the team of Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl. That's quite a good starting five there. There's just something about it. I still can't quite verbalize it correctly. There's something about that team that just doesn't quite click for me. I think overall it's just a definitive lack of shooting. It's the lack of volume three-point shooting in the team that just doesn't really do it for me and would lead to struggles. Not to mention that you're really investing in that to be your team. Like, there's not much you can do beyond that. There's not a lot of role players you can, invest in to play around that. Like, Brandon Ingram would be, in theory, on or near a max. Barnes would be on his max. Quickly's making $35 million. RJ Barrett's making mid-20s. Like, that's a very expensive roster that you're dealing with there. And it's not a roster that I believe is a contender. I believe that's a playoff team. I believe that's a playoff team this year. But that's not a contender. And you're investing in it as if it's a contender. So you could open up a bit more space maybe for those role players by trading away RJ Barrett in this deal, keeping those picks, using those picks to fill around this team. That maybe makes a little bit more sense for me. Statistically, RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram are very similar. I get that, but Brandon Ingram is the superior player. There's this talk about RJ Barrett developing and he's getting better, and I don't disagree with that, but I think there's a certain limitation to how efficient RJ Barrett can be as a player. I like Barrett. I don't think you need to trade him, but I think in this scenario, if you're getting a player like Brandon Ingram, who I believe is better shot creator, I think better fit next to Scotty Barnes. Not by much, but I think a better fit there. I'm not opposed to doing this without having to give up a first-round pick. Now, these trades might be ridiculous. Pelicans fans might say, there's no way we're making this trade. But, these are two trades that I would consider as a Raptors fan looking at this situation. What you would have to come to terms with is, okay, is Brandon Ingram, who's older and still producing similar stats, is paying that guy, double what RJ Barrett makes? Is it worth it there? Because even if you believe Brandon Ingram is a better player, I do believe that. Is it worth paying him that much more to get Barrett? Does he really push you over the edge that much? That's a bigger debate. Now, along the conversations of tanking and, hey, why are you even considering trading for Brandon Ingram when this team should be tanking? Brandon Ingram's injured. He will be injured for a decent period of time as well. So there is still the possibility of trading for Ingram and still tanking. I don't think anything should take precedent over the Raptors tanking this season. That should be the way the Raptors go about their business. Overall, for Brandon Ingram, I think that this is a story that is a little far-fetched. I think it's possible. I don't think that this trade is going to materialize. And though the draw of getting a player like Brandon Ingram on a cut price deal is intriguing, it's not selling me quite enough. For me, for this one, I'm out. But then another trade has propped up, which could involve Bruce Brown going to the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler going to the Golden State Warriors, Andrew Wiggins coming to the Raptors, which definitely makes the team better. Like, Andrew Wiggins having a decent season overall. He's a decent player, shoots the free ball well, decent defender, decent scorer. Like, there's good qualities associated with Andrew Wiggins' game 100%. And I'd be comfortable trading Bruce Brown for a player like Andrew Wiggins. But this, again, the contract is a problem. The Raptors are not working with like a ton of cap space in the future. Like, when they really want to start building with this team, Andrew Wiggins doesn't help that. He's making around $26 million this year. He'll be making $28 million next year. And the year after that, he'll be making about $30 million on a player option, which he may or may not take. But that's quite a bit of money for quite a bit of time tied up in Andrew Wiggins. And as much as I think he makes the team better, how much is it really moving the needle? It's once again like not really a shooter. Like, it's a guy who can shoot, yes, but it's once again like a guy who's not a shooter coming into the Raptors. Like how much does this really solve about this current team and what it is? Like, is a starting five of Emmanuel Quickley, Andrew Wiggins, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, Jakob Pearl good? Like, yes, but that's still not a contender. That's probably a playoff team, but there's limitations to what that team can do on court as a group just because of the lack of floor spacing. And there's limitations to what you can do with that group because there's just not a lot of spending power beyond that before you're going into like big tax situations. So this situation is also a little bit interesting, but I think if like you could say we're getting Andrew Wiggins for free here, like, you're not really getting him for free. Like, you should be getting paid to take Andrew Wiggins. Like, Bruce Brown's an expiring contract. We're just going to be giving Golden State Jimmy Butler here for the sake of it. Like, no, somebody's got to pay up to make this deal happen. And I think the Raptors should be the ones receiving compensation for taking on the length of this Andrew Wiggins contract. So if all of a sudden we're talking about Andrew Wiggins coming to the Raptors alongside draft capital, now all of a sudden this starts to make a bit more sense. Andrew Wiggins comes over with maybe a first-round pick. Now I think we're cooking with something here. Does that trade materialize? I'm not so sure. And even if it does, do I really want to be paying Andrew Wiggins for possibly the next 2.5 seasons? I'm not so sure. And again, does that hinder the tank a little bit for the Raptors? Potentially so. I'd be more on board with receiving Andrew Wiggins in a first-round pick than I would be with going in for Brandon Ingram. I can see the appeal. I see the pros, but I also see the cons of both situations here. Ultimately, what I would like to see happen for the Raptors at the trade deadline here, sell. Make the team worse. It's fun we're winning games, but let's stick to the plan here. Like, the Wembanyama year, we bought at the deadline, foolishly. And it set us back, and we're still dealing with the repercussions of that. Last year, we sold at the deadline in a year that we did not guaranteed have our pick, and even if we did, the major prize was like Alex Sarr or Zachary Riza-Shea, and then you're telling me Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper available, and you're going to buy at the deadline again? Like, let's be serious here. The Raptors, do what needs to be done here. Tanking is the right course of action for the team. Some interesting reports here surrounding Brandon Ingram and Andrew Wiggins. But no, I never know what Masai is thinking, and like, maybe they are eyeing a big trade like this. I just sincerely hope that they are not. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that's it for today's video. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more Raptors content. I'll see you again next time for another video.